This is for my daughter, Anastasia Baker. She's asked me a couple things about family migration. What I would like to say is that my uh, family migration I can trace back to Newport News, Virginia, along with Jamestown, Virginia. Newport News, Virginia had brought in a lot of slaves at that time. Um, of course, years before I was born, but uh, our families from my mother's side, started in Newport News, Virginia, um, and from there, my mother's uh, had four sisters and four brothers. Very large family. Um, and, if we go back in history and time, you'll find that, yes, great, great, great uh, grandparents were part of the slave history in Virginia. Um, I grew up in a house that my great grandmother had that was a a sharecropper's home, but it was a big home that the owner had allowed um, my great grandparents to stay, and we also lived in it. Um, and it was a happy place to grow up. And we would have what we called the houses was like colonial times, and we call it the colony, that area. Um, it was all black area at that time, and it was okay. Everybody knew everybody, and it was fun. Um, the house at the beginning of the entry into the housing area was great because it was the candy store. It was a house. The older guy and his wife, they sold candy, and a lot of times we go down there. But I will say that bubble gum back then is not like bubble gum today. We can blow. Back then we would be able to blow bubbles, and you can almost fly with how big the bubbles can. But it was fun growing up in that area. Um, my mother and father met um, in Newport News, Virginia. Um, my father was just going through basic training in the military. Um, from there, he ran into my mother somehow, and they got married. Um, they produced my sister, uh, me, and brother. And so I'm in the middle. My sister's oldest. I have a younger brother. But because my father was in the military, we migrated all over the place because we lived in um, many different states, uh, Texas, Kentucky, Chicago. Um, we grew up all over the world, Japan, Panama, um, uh, Puerto Rico, uh, Germany. Um, so in that in doing that, we met many people, different parts of the world, and and you know, we grew and grew. And my father's last station, we ended up in South Carolina at Fort Jackson. I graduated and went to high school in Columbia, South Carolina. Went off to college, um, played went off to college and played football, played sports. I then joined the military, But prior to going to the military, I was in Canada as part of a migration, and I I from going from Canada, um, I then joined the military. Um, in doing so, again, I started traveling and going different parts of the world. Um, one of those places was Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. So while dealing with the war in Desert Storm, after it ended, I came back to Kuwait to work, where out of nowhere, I had to come all the way across the world to find my wife, and I met my wife in Kuwait. Um, my wife was Yemen, so I was okay with meeting her and meeting her family, and um, in in knowing that she was from the Middle East, it was nice. So after dating for us a little bit, we got married. We produced a daughter, Anastasia. Now, my wife's travel began because she and her family are from Yemen. Um, her father was part of um, um, a uh, a different party, a political party. That political party was fighting against the party in government. She was then her family uh, was forced to leave Kuwait. Excuse me, forced to leave Yemen because of many assassination attempts on her father's life. Uh, he was shot a couple times. They then went to the UK, and then from the UK they came to Kuwait. Um, while in Kuwait, my wife, uh, Lawahid, she she grew up here in Kuwait and graduated from high school in Kuwait. Uh, and then after meeting me, she migrated to the U.S. She migrated to the U.S. and the U.S. is where she calls home now. So her migration that ends up in the U.S. was also a long trip, going from um, a historical country of Yemen, then to Kuwait, then with um, Anastasia, they migrated um, to the U.S. to Columbia, South Carolina, in which they call home now. So that's how their migration and my migration started.